Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the StorTrends Virtual Lunch and Learn. My name is Tyler Newberry, and we'll be getting started in just a couple of moments. If you are in a pizza delivery zone and have registered for your pizza to be arriving soon, like I said, welcome to the webinar, and we'll be getting started just momentarily. Thanks so much. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to the StorTrends Virtual Lunch and Learn. My name is Tyler Newberry. I will be your moderator today. With me is the director of StorTrends, Justin Bagby. And before we get started, we have just a couple of quick housekeeping items to take care of before we get started. First, deals with the technology. YouTube usually cooperates with these events. However, YouTube has been known to cut in and out occasionally. If it happens at some point today, we recommend try refreshing the page. If that doesn't work right away, just give it a minute to catch up. Usually it comes back on within a few seconds or so. But yeah, just try to be patient with it if at all possible. Second, it deals with the pizza. If you did register for the event and are in a pizza delivery zone, it should be arriving within the next few minutes if it hasn't already. If the delivery person has not contacted you within the next 5 to 10 minutes or so, shoot me an email. It can be found below the video in the video description, and it's tylern@ami.com. Please don't comment on the video. It'll be much quicker for us to contact the pizza delivery company if you shoot me an email instead. And lastly, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to post those to the comments section, and we will address those at the end if time permits. If time does not permit, we will actually comment to your comment with our response. But that's enough for the boring housekeeping stuff. Let's get on to the show. I'll go ahead and turn it over to the director of StorTrends currently, Mr. Justin Bagby. Justin.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Bagby. I'm the director of the StorTrends division here at American Megatrends Incorporated. So let's get started with the StorTrends 3600 series all flash array webinar. Quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about AMI, introduce you to AMI if you're unfamiliar with our company. We'll give you a snapshot of the customers of whom we've sold to and whom we're currently selling to today. We'll talk a little bit about the StorTrends product matrix, and we'll go over the different versions of the products that we offer. We're going to specifically spend a little bit of time talking about the StorTrends 3600i and the 3610 benefits. And then we're going to dive into the StorTrends technology with a live demo of the product. And we'll finish with any questions that anyone has for us during the presentation. And again, feel free to post those comments or questions, and we'll be glad to get to those at the end of the presentation. So really quick here, who is AMI? Most of you probably know us as a BIOS company. So there's about a 65% chance if we restart our computers that we're watching this presentation on today, whether that be a laptop or a desktop, you would find that if we entered BIOS setup, you're going to see an AMI BIOS there. We're foremost the front runner there in that market. We've been doing that since 1985. We still have the strongest foothold and position in that market today. Another product that you may know us from, and you've seen our logo in the past, is if you've ever done any remote redirection from your servers, when you're using IPMI, remote management, remote KVM, if you're using a specific card in a server or the software in the server, that is the MegaRack technology under the hood there. So we're in all of the servers, the workstations, their storage arrays, the blade solutions. We're doing all that remote management, out-of-band management on those servers. And then a third product that you've probably used from us in the past or encountered in the past would be the Mega RAID card. So again, if you've had a server in your infrastructure in your rack there and you've set up the RAID in that server, you've probably utilized the Mega RAID card. It is the predominant #1 RAID card in the world. It's the mostly used RAID controller by all the OEMs worldwide. It's owned by LSI Avago Technologies today. But AMI did create that RAID card in 1995. We quickly became the #1 RAID vendor in the world in 1996. We sold that off to LSI Logic in the early 2000s. And that's really our footprint and what gave us a start into the RAID world and into the storage world that we're into today. So AMI was founded in 1985. We have a worldwide presence with 8 international offices and 4 US-based offices. We have a little over 1,300 employees. And again, worldwide product recognition. Our products today ship in more than half of all of the computers worldwide. So you've been using us for years, you just might not have known it. From an innovation perspective, specifically from StorTrends, which is what we're talking about today, we have over 163 storage-based patents on our StorTrends technology alone, and we have thousands of StorTrends installations in the field worldwide. This is a customer collage of just some of the customers that utilize and have deployed StorTrends in the field. Just want to point out here that there's not a specific niche or a specific industry where we fit. We offer centralized and backup storage. That means anyone that's looking for just a handful of terabytes up to 256 terabytes as their centralized storage array, we have a solution for you, whether that be spinning disk, a hybrid array, or an all-flash array. And again, we have thousands of customers worldwide with a very large footprint that have implemented our technology. And this is the StorTrends product model. So this is our product lineup. As you'll see on the left-hand side, the StorTrends 3400i. This is our spinning disk solution that we've been shipping for several years now. This solution scales up to 256 terabytes, and it utilizes both NL-SAS or SAS 15K drives, or a mixture of. So this has been the flagship product for many years here at AMI for the StorTrends division. Last year, we launched the StorTrends 3500i Hybrid SAN. The Hybrid SAN comes with a handful of SSDs, and then it's backfilled with either NL-SAS or SAS 15K drives, depending on the performance and the capacity that you as the customer actually need. That hybrid model is very unique to the market. And we had great success. We had several thousand installs of this box, and it's been a very successful product for us, primarily because we take a different approach than a lot of other vendors. We have both caching and tiering in our hybrid array. So there's a lot of vendors that will go out and taunt that caching's better than tiering, and others that say tiering's better than caching. And we came to market with a solution that incorporates both because there's advantages to both technology. So if you're interested in the StorTrends 3500i hybrid array, I will be glad to show you a demo on that and provide you with more information. But today we're specifically here to talk about our all-flash arrays. So the StorTrends 3600 and the StorTrends 3610. These are our new all-flash arrays. We went publicly launched these on Tuesday, March the 17th. And today we already installed this box in about 40 facilities. So we already have a footprint out in the market for this technology, and we're seeing great results and benefits from the customers that have installed these boxes. So let's dive a little bit more into these two boxes, and let's talk a little bit more about their features. The StorTrends 3600i is made up of 16 SSD drives. It either comes with 2 or 4 in the right tier and 12 or 14 in the read tier. So our right tier are enterprise class SSDs on the front end, and then we back populate the device with standard MLC drives. And I'll go into detail in just a few minutes about why we have a split architecture between reads and write tiers. Both boxes come with 4 1 gig NICs and 4 10 gig NICs by default. The 3600i supports up to a max capacity of 64 terabytes and does not expand. And then that leads us to the 3610. So the 3610 is a little beefier box, more CPUs, more memory. It comes with either 4 or 6 write tier drives, and then it's shipped with either 10 or 12 of the read tier drives. And those drives vary in sizes from 200 terabytes up to 200 gigs up to 2 terabytes for the write tier. and then 128 gig up to 1 terabyte in the read tier. Again, it also ships with 4 1 gig NICs and 4 10 gig NICs, and it allows scalability up to 256 terabytes within the storage pool. So what are some of the new features that we've added to the StorTrends 3600i series? The first would be the inline compression and deduplication. So out of the boxes that are already in the field today, we had 30 that were beta customers. And what those beta customers saw across their workloads was a 6.1 to 1 average for data deduplication and compression ratio. So a very, very good dedupe and compression ratio on the data that they put onto the appliances. We've also added support for ESX 6.0. So VMware's ESXi 6.0 support's been incorporated. We've made enhancements to the StorTrends iData tool. So if you've used this tool in the past, you know that this is a tool that runs on your existing environment today. It really goes through and analyzes everything within your infrastructure from IOPS to reads versus writes. But the real benefit of the tool is distinguishing the difference between your hot data and your cold data. So by knowing your hot data, we know exactly how much SSD or flash to put into your install so that we're not underselling or overselling you. There's a lot of customers that have expressed concerns where other vendors have undersold them in the beginning, and then they have write misses and read misses on the cache, and they have performance issues in the field. And they find that within the first 12 months, they're upgrading those SSDs or the flash within those systems. So by utilizing a tool like StorTrends iData, we eliminate any guesses, and we have factual, concrete information from your environment that tells us exactly what you need from an SSD perspective. We've also added Linux support. And then specifically for our 3600 series, the all-flash array, we've added a dedupe and compression analyzer. This allows us to crawl across the database and look for matchable blocks so we can understand what the dedupe ratio is going to look like. So again, we're not guessing at your dedupe ratio. We can run this tool and we can know, you're a 2 to 1, a 5 to 1, a 7 to 1, whatever your dedupe ratio and your compression ratio is going to be, we can project that up front. So again, we know exactly how much raw capacity to sell you within the configuration versus the effective capacity you're going to see after dedupe and compression. And then we'll talk a little bit about the expansion shelves. We have all flash expansion shelves. We can add all read drives, or we can add a mixture of the write tier and the read tier, just depending on the customer's requirements there for future growth. So that's how we allow the platform to grow for the customer so they can expand the capacity down the road. So what's the purpose? What's the benefit? What's the purpose? And what are the savings behind the StorTrends 3600i all flash arrays? So on the left-hand side of the screen here, you'll see an existing customer's environment. This is an all spinning disk solution. If we wanted 24 terabytes of usable capacity in array 10 for high performance, we would have had to have provided 48 terabytes of raw capacity. So there would be 80 disks in this array, in this set, and these are 15K SAS drives. So you can see that's an EMC VNX on the left over there. That could be a Dell Compellent spinning disk solution. It could even be a StorTrends 3400i spinning disk solution. A lot of our 3400i customers are now moving into hybrid and into all flash to take advantage of what SSD brings to the table with both caching and tiering for performance. So in the past, you would have had around 48 terabytes. You would have been using about 12,000 kilowatts per year of power, 7.17 tons of CO2 emissions. There were 5 boxes there, 80 disks that could fail. And what you would have paid from a CapEx perspective, the capital investment would have been around 125K. So again, this is several years back. This is what probably a lot of you have installed today. Let's fast forward to the right here, and you see the StorTrends 3600i. This is our all flash array with a raw capacity of 6.8 terabytes. With a 5 to 1 dedupe and compression ratio, we would have an effective capacity of a little more than 30 terabytes. One of the things that you notice is the latency. We're able to see sub 1 milliseconds latency with an all flash solution. So now that when you're running your Oracle database or whatever you might be running, the users are seeing a faster response time when entering orders, when querying data, when running reports. So we've been able to reduce the latency down to that sub 1 millisecond level. The rack space is just a 3U footprint. The yearly power was cut more than in half. The CO2 emissions were cut more than in half. You're managing just one array now. There's only 16 drives in this box. And what really jumps off the page here is the CapEx. So a box like this is going to cost around 44K, just the sheer box. It doesn't include support. So you have a huge CapEx savings over the investment that was made just a few years back in a spinning disk solution. But the hitting cost here is also the OpEx savings. So your operational expenditures. If that spinning disk solution's in a data center today, you're paying for that footprint, you're paying for that real estate, which can be pricey. With just a single box, it's less real estate, less power. So there's all these OpEx savings on the back end that are unseen until you actually rip and replace those spinning disks. So these are the benefits and savings that we're bringing to the market with the StorTrends 3600 series all-flash array. So what are some of the benefits? Obviously, first and foremost is compression and dedupe. This is what allows us to take the raw size of the flash and really move that upward so that we can get into the effective capacity that the customer's looking for. And it's what allows us to lower the cost per gigabyte. So we're not throwing thin provision numbers in here like a lot of other vendors are. We're just looking at pure dedupe and compression savings of what you're going to see from taking the raw disk to the effective capacity. A benefit that we bring to the table is a read and a write tier. These are optimized flash tiers, and within the next couple slides, I'll explain why the architectures are read and write split and how we came to that. But it allows for the writes to stay on the write drives, the reads to stay on the read drives, and it provides for exceptional performance by dividing this up. One of the benefits that StorTrends brings to the table is over 300 configurations. Now, it may sound like a lot, but it really helps our end customers. We're not offering just 4 or 6 configurations and trying to put a square peg in a round hole. We're not trying to paint you into a specific size box. We have the ability to mix and match those write tiers, read tiers, both the quantity of SSDs and the capacity of those SSDs that really give you the exact configuration that you need for your specific environment. So we're not underselling you or overselling you on the amount of flash and the performance and the capacity that you need. And then this is an all-inclusive feature set at one price point. So no nickels, no dimes, no arms, no legs. You get the replication, you get the snapshots, you get the data auto tiering. All of the enterprise class features that are baked into the traditional StorTrends arrays come within the same price point of the array. Again, from a performance perspective, we're able to see superior latency reduction. A lot of the customers that were in our sub 1 milliseconds in latency, we're able to achieve over 300,000 ops with this box. One of the unique things with the series is it can be put into an active-active or an active-passive configuration, and that does support a Lua. So if the customer needs more throughput, we can put you into an active-active. We can run all 4 10Gs at the same time, so we can give you the maximum throughput of the box. The price point, so the StorTrends 3600i starts at $24,999 as you add more write-intensive drives and higher capacity drives. We have a multitude of configurations that are under $1 per gig. And again, that's effective capacity and utilizing the dedupe and compression savings that we see. The targeted applications for this appliance is high-performance databases, virtualized environments, VDI, and then mixed workloads for centralized storage. And the experience that we bring to the table is none like any other. We have 30 years of IT leadership in the IT industry. Millions of trusted RAID customers have used us to protect their data on their servers and storage arrays over the years. And we've just recently had over 1,300 StorTrends installs with the release of the StorTrends 3500i hybrid array. So it really kind of puts us on the map and proves that our technology is ready to go mainstream and live. So let's talk a little bit about read and write optimized tiers. There's a whole vast variety of different implementations from different vendors. Some use all consumer grade drives. Some use all enterprise class drives. What brought us to the point of a mixed tier where we're using either 2, 4, 6, or 8 write drives versus the remainder being filled with read drives? So what's the difference? Tier enterprise class SAS SSDs. So what does that mean to you as the end customer? It means that it allows for 10 drive writes per day. So if we're using enterprise class EMLC drive, we can withstand up to 2 terabytes of write per day. However, the read drives in the read tier, they only allow for 1 drive write per day. So you have anywhere from 30 to 50 gigs of changes that could occur per day per drive. There's a vast majority of our 3500i hybrid customers that would bust that. They're in the 60, 80, 90 gigs per day of write changes on those drives. So if we went with just an all read tier, all CMLC drives, those customers would run out of endurance in year 2, year 3, year 4 of the life cycle of the array. Front of the array with enterprise class drives, we don't have to worry about the read endurance on the back ends of the drives. So this is how we allow for heavy ends while protecting the drives. But with StorTrends, we take that one step further. So we've actually added something from our StorTrends 3500i hybrid array, which is our caching feature. So if you remember, I told you earlier, we do caching and tiering in our hybrid array. We also do the same in our all flash array. So you may ask why? Well, it's simple. In the read tier drives, again, remember, they can only write per day, 30 to 50 gigs of changes. A lot of vendors would take a write and they'll send it downstream if that block's sitting in the read tier. So if block Z here that's blue sitting in the read tier was something you were working on, let's say it's a paper that you've written, and it's being stored in the read tier, and you did it so it's cold. It was moved from the write tier when it was originally loaded down into the read tier, and a new write comes in for that document. You change the date on it or whatnot. Instead of sending that drive write directly downstream to the read tier, we're actually going to send it into what we call in-lift cache. So this is a small valve on the right tier of those enterprise class SSDs. And this is where we profile that block change. So when that write comes in, we watch that block and we determine. So we're going to distinguish between the two. If you, again, touch the, so the read tier Z would be promoted up into the right tier. That's where the changes would then be made. However, and it becomes cold. So it's just a one-time touch, walk away, and the block's never changed again. We're going to actually then send that block consolidated downstream into that read tier with our one drive write. So this is a way, again, we further protect that read tier to give you, the customer, the insurance and the guarantee of knowing that you're not going to run out of endurance. So what happens to technology have consumer grade drives in this entire array out of the life cycle of the SAN? What happens in the next step? Does that vendor send you 24, 16 or 24 new SSDs and arrayed one at a time? Do they send you another array and you have to then replicate to their array and upgrade your drives and then replicate back? Do they plan on forklifting you where they're going to make you take an upgrade at that point in time when you run out of endurance? There's a lot of questions that need to be asked around endurance, and a lot of vendors dodge that, and they tell you we over-provision the blocks. Well, if you over-provision the blocks, you've broken the warranty on that drive. The drive vendors, they don't want you over-provisioning the blocks that are there in the drives. So we've taken great steps on our side to ensure that when you implement and install a StorTrends all-flash array, you do not have to worry about the endurance of this array for a 5 to 7 year period. So someone asking layman's terms, how does this affect me? Well, you can get into an airplane with another all-flash vendor, or you can get into my airplane and I'll give you a parachute. So just from a layman's terms, we're making sure that we protect our customers and we take. So let's take a few minutes and talk about deduplication and compression. So, a lot of customers ask me, what we do different in deduplication and compression. StorTrends, we've not created deduplication. We've not invented it. This stuff's been around for 10 years plus. But it's really attractive now that you can use a technology like this, and it allows you to take a small SSD like a 200 gig, have a 5-to-1 and push that up into a 1 terabyte of effective space. So they're great technologies. But what AMI did is we went out into the market and looked at who had implemented dedupe, who had implemented compression. What were the flaws of those products? And we noticed there were flaws in just about across the board. So something we decided to do was design. We wanted a more efficient, more elegant dedupe and compression engine. So in this product is the industry's leading dedupe hash tables. It's the way you do your data indexing. One of the things that we noticed were tying up a lot of latency in the way they were hashing and the way they were doing data compares. It was taking a long time for them to hash and do data compares. So with this implementation, there's two hash table that sits in the hash table that sits downstream in the SSDs. And with our implementation, what we found is that 95% of the time, we take care of all of our hashing upstream in the hot table. This is where all of our hot data resides. So you're probably very familiar with the most frequently written data is the most recently accessed data as well. So you're going to access the hot data that's being written to the array more than you're going to access the cold data that's in the array. So what we store is we guarantee that we store in that upper table. So that allows us to do the majority of our hashing and the majority of our lookups upstream. Therefore, we don't have any latency issues by going downstream and having to do complete compare lookups in the SSDs. So this is one of the main features that allows us to do always on deduplication, always at 4K. And we do not have a post process, a parallel process, or any kind of that takes place like a lot of other arrays. So there's other vendors out there that'll tell you, well, we do various block sizes. We have a split deduplication architecture where we'll do inline, we'll turn inline off when performance picks up, and we'll go to a post process. The reason that is because of a flawed deduplication engine that they're using. So if you can keep up with it at a 4K and always stay online and avoid performance degradation, why wouldn't you just do that? That's the simplest and easiest mechanism. And that's what we've implemented here within StorTrends. So we avoid the post process, we avoid the garbage cleanup, we avoid all the big advanced StorTrends array is that we use a lot less CPU and a lot less memory. So the CPU with all of that extra overhead, have a lot of memory to put that table in and do a lot of the deduplication and the compression cycles. It allows us to pass those savings on to you, the end customer, so we can get you a less expensive all-flash array. If you look at our footprint, we use 192 gigs larger box. Compare that to some of the other leading, some of the other what they call the leading vendors in the industry. They're using 400 gig of RAM in their systems. Thousands of stores directly into you so that we can get a more cost-effective all-flash array. So the other thing here with deduplication and compression, I have a very simple process. We looked at some of the other solutions out there. There's open source solutions. If you've explored that route, they tend to compress, dedupe, and then compress. Those are wasted cycles. We found that the savings in doing that versus just a simple deduplicate, compress it, and we're done with it. So why go through multiple levels of compression when you just simply don't have to do it, and you can still have the same savings but better performance? So this is truly an elegant engine that has been implemented into the StorTrends 3600 series array. One of the things I'd like to call out here is this is a little bit about our snapshot. So we are application aware. That's VSS support. So we quiz the database before we take the snap. We're redirect on write snapshots. So you see the word row there. A lot of other vendors that you might be looking at, they're copy on write. What does that mean? It means there's additional steps involved in the snapshot process where they have to copy the block, move it out, then take the new snapshot, put it into where the copied block was. What we do is we just redirect to the next available block within the array. We also don't require our customers to set aside a specific amount of snapshot space. So a lot of other vendors will tell you you need to set 20 or 30% aside for snapshots of the volume size, and they're going to use that for collecting their snapshots. We don't make you waste that space. We just, again, we redirect to the next available block, and we just in that volume. We can maintain multiple schedules all the way up to a minute, or all the way down, I should say, to a minute. So we can do 1 minute level increments all the way up to days to years. There's multiple levels of the snapshot so that we can ensure that you have the right RPO for your environment. And then SnapTrends is our virtual or visual snapshot UI. This allows for a recovery and review of a snapshot. So we can take a live snapshot, we can mount that snapshot, we can walk through it and review it. We don't have to roll back to it. We can do single line recovery out of it. You can pull a file out of it. From an SQL perspective, we can do a single line database recovery for all you SQL guys. For Exchange, we can do a single mailbox recovery. So a very nice snapshot engine that supports up to 8,000 plus snapshots for the box. So this is a pretty large distinguishing factor between StorTrends and any of the other all-flash array vendors out there. By supporting the same software with our spinning disk, our hybrid array, and our all-flash array, we can replicate between any of those devices. They all talk together because they're using the same software. So it allows us to get really creative in a DR strategy. So if a customer is hard-pressed with the budget, restraints, and they need DR, we can provide them an all-flash array or a hybrid array at their primary site and then replicate that to a low-end spinning disk so that they have a cold DR solution. We can do multiple to one. We can do bidirectional replication. So if you have two hot sites and you want to bidirectional replicate between the two, we can do that as well. One of the bigger differentiators is our WDS technology. This stands for Wide Area Data Services. This allows us to encrypt. It allows us to dedupe and compress and then encrypt those snapshots. And then we use our WAN optimization patented technology to send it across the wire. So if you're familiar with how Riverbed or Silver Peak keeps data centers up from one side to the other, it's the same thing with the storage array here. So this allows you as the customer to use less of your bandwidth between your sites. So you don't have to worry about the StorTrends array utilizing a lot of that pipe. We also have consistency groups between our volumes, and then we can set up periodicity where we can actually control how much of the pipe we're using. So if you're not so much worried about the boxes staying up, 100% in sync, and we can dial the periodicity down, we can say only use 30% of that pipe, or we can say only replicate between specific hours of the night. So if you only want us to replicate between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. when there's less on that pipe, we can do that as well. So the disaster recovery that we bring to the table from an all-flash array perspective is bar none best in the industry. So this slide talks a little bit about our StorTrends iData tool. I talked about this a little earlier. This is a free tool that you can download from StorTrends.com. It's simple, it's non-intrusive, it doesn't generate any I/O. It sets up in minutes. You can plug this into the server level, you can plug it into your VMs, you can even put it into vSphere if you're running VMware with vSphere. So there's a multitude of areas where we can actually plug in and start monitoring. We're utilizing existing performance tools in your infrastructure today. So if you have Windows on one of your servers, we're using WMI and we're pulling out of that. So we're not actually watching your data. We're using those performance metrics, so it is a safe tool to run. It runs by default for 7 days on your existing equipment. So if you have a DAS environment, if you have an existing SAN sitting there, if you have multiple SANs, whatever your environment may be, it will run in your existing infrastructure today. And what this does is after the 7 days, it allows us to roll up a really elegant report. And you can see the screenshots of it here. It allows us to understand your capacity usage. It gives us the reads versus the writes. It tells us your network utilization. The key thing here is it identifies the hot or active data versus the cold data. So what we have found when we released our hybrid array is that the vast majority of our customers knew how much data they had. They knew there were 20 terabytes, 60 terabytes, 110 terabytes. But what they didn't know was how much of that data is actually hot. And that's a requirement in specifically placing a hybrid array, because we need to know how much tier space you need from an SSD perspective so that we're not seeing any kind of cache misses. We didn't undersell you or oversell you on the SSDs that you need. And again, we have over 300 configurations. So this tool allows us to really narrow down those configurations to meet your specific requirements from a performance and a capacity perspective. Now, the changes that have been made to this tool is not only now do we know your hot data, we also know your write data. So with knowing your ops, knowing your hot data, we can determine the amount of writes that you're sending to the array. And that's how we spec the write tier, or what we call the write drive tier in your all-flash array. So again, we can do 4, 6, 8 SSDs in that write array. And we know exactly how many drives you need. We know the size that you need in order to support your requirements. The bigger thing that we've added is the deduplication analyzer. So we can take a backup of your data if you have Exchange, if you have an SQL backup. We can run this across that piece of the data, and we can actually look for comparable blocks. And then we can tell you your deduplication ratio is a 3.4 to 1. Or maybe it's a 5 to 1. Everyone's data is different. The way that you set up your applications could be different. If you look at an Exchange environment, there's a default by setup that allows you to compress it. If we take a compressed exchange, we're only going to be able to pull that down by about 50%. But if we take an uncompressed exchange backup, we can actually get somewhere around a 10-to-1 in an exchange environment on our dedupe ratio. So there's a lot of different settings and changes that we can play with there. And this tool helps us understand what you have, what the setup looks like, and then it projects what we're going to see once we put an all-flash array in your environment. So there's no guessing. If you tell me you want 50 terabytes of effective capacity, we run this tool and it comes back and it tells me you're a 5-to-1, I know that you need to buy 10 terabytes of raw capacity in that all-flash array. There's no need for you to buy 20 or 30 or 40 terabytes. We can get by with 10. So this tool really takes the guessing out of the game. And that's the difference between us and a lot of vendors. We don't try to put you into a corner with other customers. Well, you kind of look like this customer and you kind of seem like your data is the same as that customer. So you should be in this area. We take all of that shoulds, woulds, and coulds out of the mixture, and we have known data that we rely on to spec and place the right product. So just really quick, talk about the storage support program. We offer the storage support in 1 to 5 year terms. There's two different products that we allow that go with our storage array here. First is our standard storage support, which offers next business day on-site hardware replacement. The next is a storage plus support, and that offers 4-hour on-site hardware replacement. So the 24/7 phone support for both of these packages, it comes from Atlanta, Georgia. So you dial the 1-800 number. You immediately are on the line with one of our storage engineers, one of our support storage engineers, and they're able to identify what the pain point could be by looking at either a debug dump or we're receiving alerts from your array. So we track these alerts. You can see we do remote email alert monitoring. We're watching these alerts real time as they come in. So a lot of the times, if something happens during the night, we can actually trigger an RMA and send you a drive the next day without even the customer knowing that it's coming. So, and that comes into our proactive drive. And then we offer single-year support extensions that are available. So if you were to interview 10 customers of ours, and ask them, what's the number one thing you like about the support, or about the product itself from StorTrends, they're going to tell you it's the storage support program. By far, this is the number one thing that our customers love the most, whether it's just a simple question they have about how to create a new volume, how to clone something, a volume, set up a snapshot schedule, or whether there's something wrong, whether there could be a drive issue, a power supply failed. We're always here for you, and the support level that we provide is industry leading. So with that, I want to jump over into a live demo of the product. I'm going to give you a quick view of what it looks like and what the product looks like. So when you log into the StorTrends array, this is the page that initially populates the screen. Again, you log into our arrays with any web browser. It could be Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, whatnot. So you log into the IP address of the array. If there were multiple arrays on your network, they would show up here in a new bar that would populate. So you can manage multiple units from one screen. You simply click on that other box, the other IPs. As long as you have the login credentials already preset, it'll allow you to just jump from screen to screen to manage those boxes. So it's really easy to manage the StorTrends box. VMware and you're using the vSphere web plugin, you can manage this box from the web plugin via, instead of managing it from the actual managed trend screen here. For some of you more complicated users, if you guys like to really dig in, we have CLI commands, so we've got a full command line interface, so you can do everything that you need to do via CLI and avoid using the GUI. But the majority of our customers use the GUI here. And I just want to point out some of the key pieces of the GUI and the management of this box. So, over an looking tree from event logs all the way down to your statistics, to your volumes, to your snapshot configurations, everything's sitting there. But I'm going to close that for now and spend a little time on the entry page here. So first thing I want to talk a little bit about is the physical capacity versus the projected capacity and the data reduction. So you can see the build of this box. This is a StorTrends 3600. It has a physical capacity of 2.7 terabytes. The used capacity, the physical used capacity is 286.6 gigs. So what we're projecting with this box is a 24.8 terabyte effective capacity. So you can see that throws our data reduction rate at 9.3 to 1. So this is a unit that I have running here in the lab. I'm running some Exchange data on it. I'm running some VDI data on it. So it's light on some databases. But you can see the data reduction is going to populate here and show you what your data reduction rate looks like. And then that shows a predicted free space of 22.2 terabytes, a physical free space of 2.4 terabytes. So right here in the middle of the screen, we also show all of our alerts. So you can see that I had a left controller link fail in my consistency group. So this was me doing some testing with my snapshots earlier. This is why you see, so I was setting up a consistency group and I didn't have one of the links up. So it logs all of the events here, so you can quickly log in the event that you do get something come across your iPhone or your Android, and it tells you, hey, you've got a failure. You can quickly log into the box, take a peek here, see those events. We also show the smart statistics of the box. So this comes from the drive perspective. So we show the temperature of the drives, we show the status of the drives, so that you know immediately if there's something going on within that unit. So some of the other items down the page here, if I can scroll, it's full screen here. Sorry about that, just having to work with some screen resolution issues here. So as we scroll down the page, you can see some more statistics and charts. We show 0.78 milliseconds, so it's under 1 millisecond here of latency. We show our IOPS, 0.1K IOPS here on the load that's coming on the box now. And our throughput is at 39 megabytes. You can see that I'm not doing a whole lot of writing to this right now. And I've got 99.9 that you'll need when you log into the box. We'll give you the IOPS to really distribution. We break up what the IOs look like, good feel like. So you can see here everything. So just running a little slow. We're going to show you a few other screens here of the array. Oh, and it logged me out. So as it logs back in, we're going to take a couple of viewpoints here of some other key points of the array that we differentiate StorTrends from our competitors. This is an actual 3D image of the box that's populating here. So we actually give you a full graphical view of what the array looks like. So at any point in time, you can do the same thing for any of the fans, the CPUs in the box. You can take a peek at any of the components in the array. I can turn the box around and look at the rear view, and it'll actually show me the rear view port connection, so I can see what my values of my NICs are. I can see the system fans, the power supply status. So just a real good graphical viewpoint. If I have additional enclosures, they'll show here. So if I have additional off, and they'll populate here in the screen. So it really gives you a good viewpoint of the system, what's going on in the array. For troubleshooting perspectives, whether you're having network issues or whether something's actually failed on the array. So one of the things I want to point out here is that everything in this appliance is wizard driven. So whether you're creating a volume, whether you're creating a snapshot schedule, whether you're creating a replication schedule or a replication pair, everything's wizard driven within the array. And it's designed by default that way so that it's easy to manage. A lot of our customers, you don't spend all day in these arrays. You want to get in, you want to get out, go on with your daily business of what you're doing in your environment. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you. One of the things that we do on all of our pages, there's local help located on the page. So you can simply click on the top up here at the help bar and you can see immediate help. It'll show you hundreds of pages of help. You can sort through that. Everything, again, like I said, is wizard driven. Here's our storage wizard that's populating now. So we really try to make this simplistic and easy to use. We also try to make it aesthetic so that the customer can see and understand exactly, what the changes that they're making to the array can do. So I want to talk really quick about the install of the box. One of the things that we offer is free remote installs. During that installation period, we'll spend a couple hours with you as the customer to train you on the array. So we'll walk through each of these different components of the box. We'll go through each of the tabs on the left-hand side of the tree, and we'll really explain overall what each of the functions and features of the box provides. So we'll explain the benefit. If there's if there's a negative aspect to it, we'll explain that. We just really believe in educating our customer so that you have firsthand knowledge of exactly what all the changes are going to do, so that you can further tune that box for your environment. So, and with that, I'm going to close out. I think Tyler has some questions for us here, so we're going to get started. So if you'll give us just a second, we're going to pull the questions and we'll get those answered. All right, so first question here. What is the average gigabyte price of the all-flash solution? Okay, so if you'll go to our website, there's a price quote calculator that's actually located on the website. It's going to ask you a few questions for a configuration of the right product. It's going to ask you whether you want spinning disk, hybrid, or all-flash. It's going to ask you for your ops. It's going to ask you about the databases that you're running. And most of these are checkbox items that you're going to fill out. And then what's going to happen is it'll configure a part number for you, and then that'll be emailed to you in a price quote. So if you want a specific price quote to see what it's going to look like, that's the way you can get it off of our website. You don't have to talk to a salesperson or anything like that. You can get the price quote, and it'll be emailed to you. Also, just to note there, when you do receive that price quote, first of all, it's going to be list price. We do sell through resellers here in the U.S., so it's 100% distribution through resellers. So a reseller will be able to get you a little bit better price than the list price you're going to receive. You also need to factor in the dedupe and compression. So we're going to provide you with a raw number, but in that proposal, there'll also be some projected points to hit for dedupe and compression. So it'll show you what the gigabyte per price would look like if you were a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1, a 4-to-1, a 5-to-1 dedupe or compression ratio. But again, we won't know that until you run the actual dedupe analyzer through the StorTrends iData tool. So Tyler, what's our next question here?
Yeah, thanks, Justin. And you've actually kind of touched on most of the questions we've gotten via email, but we did just have a couple of quick, wanted a little bit further explanation. One of the explanations they wanted a little bit further was we had a person out in Utah ask how we're kind of doing drive endurance, and he wanted us just to expand on that and why it's important in the 3600.
Oh, sure. So there were a couple of options that AMI had when coming to market with the all-flash array, with all SLC drives, which are your enterprise class drives. We could have gone out with all your CMLC drives, which are all your consumer grade drives. And what we found was that any of the consumer grade drives, they all had serious endurance concerns. And what I mean by that is that you're going to run out of program and erase cycles. So there's only so many PE cycles for each of those cells. Without over provisioning those cells and doing a lot of back end, black end magic that the drive vendor, they don't want you tampering with things that they've hidden from you by default. We could not provide our customers with a solution that would last 3, 4, or 5 years based on just consumer grade technology. So that's the reason that we front load our boxes with enterprise class drives. It's also the reason that we implemented the nLift cache algorithm, which is a patented cache algorithm that allows us to cache data that sits downstream on those read tier drives. So specifically, we can guarantee that our customers will not have any endurance issues within the StorTrends 3600 arrays for a 5 to 7 year period. Unlike a lot of other vendors, they're going to have to upgrade their customers. They may guarantee you that, but to resolve their guarantee, what they're going to do is ship you additional drives to either have to RAID rebuild, or they're going to force you into some kind of a replication upgrade or a forklift upgrade. So yeah, endurance is an absolute serious issue that people need to look at. And I don't care what anybody says, you really don't know until you further test this box and see what's going to happen 3, 4, 5 years down the road of what it's going to do. So make sure if you do choose a solution that vendor has looked at endurance. They've put proper pieces of technology in place to protect the endurance on those drives to ensure that you're going to be able to use that array for a long time, since this is an expensive investment.
Very good, very good. Another question that we had kind of dealt more with deduplication ratio. We had a person out in Tennessee ask that tell us that they are heavy databases currently, a lot of SQL database, and they think they might have a slightly low dedupe ratio, and they were curious if the 3600i might still be for them, even though they are heavy database.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great concern. So, there's a lot of customers that are out there that are running certain applications and certain databases that do not dedupe and compress well. It comes to mind. I have several customers that they're doing certain types of applications. There's one in the Gulf that's doing drilling for oil rigs. It's seismic data that they're monitoring that's coming into the application, and there's nothing that's deduped there. It's changing rates on a variable state, and there's no way that they're going to have a good dedupe or compression ratio. They actually ran our dedupe analyzer for us and found that their dedupe ratio was a 1.18 to 1. So that's not a customer that's going to be a good fit for an all-flash array unless they're willing to spend the money for basic raw disk capacity. So there's a lot of customers that when they have a poor dedupe or poor compression ratio, they might be a better fit for a hybrid array where we can get them a more dense solution at a less impact price. It just depends on what their read-write ratio looks for. And that's one of the reasons, Tyler, we created the StorTrends iData tool. It allows us to really know where to best position that customer. So we're not an all flash array company pushing you an all flash array when you may not need all flash array. And we're not a hybrid company that's trying to push you into a hybrid because that's all we offer is a hybrid. We have spinning disk, hybrid, and all flash. So we cover all three gamuts there. And we're going to put you where you actually need to be based on the output of your iData file.
Very good. And I think we only had one other question that we'll get to today, and then we'll sort of wrap up here and let everyone kind of get on with their day. And we do really appreciate everyone taking the time to be with us today. However, the last question more dealt with SSD endurance. And I know you touched on this already a little bit, Justin, but we were asking there, we had a couple of customers ask about SSD endurance as compared to spinning disk endurance in terms of the life of the disk. So, normal spinning disk, people anticipate any 5 years it'll last before the drives kind of start dropping there towards the end. If anyone's had an array that's about 4 or 5 years old where the disks have just sort of started dropping, and it's become a little bit more continuous process. So we just had a question about how SSDs compare to those spinning disks in that regard.
Yeah, sure. So obviously with all flash and SSD drives, there's no moving components. There's no mechanical componentry inside. We're talking about cells and electronic storage of data. So you remove that complete aspect from it. So we don't have to worry about needle movement. We don't have to worry about seek time. We don't have to worry about platters and platter crashes. We remove a lot of the vulnerability points that were in spinning disk with SSDs. So SSDs in nature, I think you can see the reliability piece just by what's being shipped in laptops today. SSDs are the predominant shipper in laptops now, and it's going to just continue to grow. They're safe. They've proven to be safe in all the testing and things that have taken place. The biggest question, obviously, is just the endurance. How many program and erase cycles do I have? It's kind of like if you've ever written on a piece of paper and you've erased it and you write in the same spot and you erase it again, you only get so many writes and erases before you've rubbed a hole in that piece of notebook paper. It's the same thing with a cell and an SSD. There's only so many program and erase cycles that you're going to have, and then you're going to wear that cell out. So endurance is the biggest issue and concern that's on the table from an SSD. From a reliability perspective of spinning disk drives, throughout our testing the last 18 months in our labs, we've only really seen about 4 hard failures of SSD drives. So the failure rate is significantly less than what we see for spinning drives. So it's a solution that's going to allow the customer to spend a lot of less time replacing disk like they have in the past.
Very good, very good. Well, it looks like we are about out of time then. Just want to give everyone a couple of more minutes just to, kind of get on with their day a little bit. But we do really appreciate everyone taking the time to let us present to them today, and hope you enjoyed the presentation. Again, we urge you to check out the links below the video. We've got the LinkedIn link. We've got our Twitter handle, like Justin mentioned, the price quote generator and iData are in there, and my general email is there in case you have any questions like that. But other than that, again, we appreciate everyone having taken the time to let us present to them today. Justin, do you have anything else for the people?
That's it. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. We will see you next time from the StorTrends team. Goodbye.